Okay. When were you born?
Ma'am?
When were you born?
March the 29th, 1928.
Okay. Where were you born?
In Belle Manor, Alabama, North Alabama.
Okay. Did you have any pets?
Any what?
Pets.
I've had a pet ever since I was 4 years old.
Okay.
I've always had a pet.
Were they always? What kind of pets were they?
Well, the first one was a dachshund, and then when I was 12 years old, I got a bird dog. And since then, it's been all bird dogs.
Okay. What was your house like?
I lived in a four-room house that was made of board and batten, but it had no ceiling in it or walls. It just had the one outside wall, and it was a four-room house.
Okay. How many siblings did you have?
I had 6, but one of them died when she was real young.
Why?
Had pneumonia.
Okay. What did your dad do?
He was an automobile mechanic.
And what was your mom like? What was your mom like?
Well, she was a really good mom, and for about 5 years, she worked in a cotton mill in Cordova all night and kept the family during the day for about 5 years. And so she had just gave her life to her large family.
I'm sorry. How many siblings did you have? 6?
Yep.
Did you say? Okay. Were you aware that you're growing up like during the after effects of the Great Depression?
Well, yeah. In fact, remember I was born in 1928, and it really started in 1929, the Depression. So I was in 1933 when it hit its peak. I would have been 5 years old.
So were you aware that it was like that America was in such a bad shape?
No, I had no idea.
What effect did it have on your family that it was during the Great Depression?
Well, my dad usually had a job, and he would always keep a car by the side of our house that he was rebuilding for somebody to make extra money. So we never had to go on receiving food from the government, although a lot of our neighbors, they would give out food at the school, and we never reached that point. We were close to it, seemingly, but never reached that point.
Were there black families on your street?
Well, we lived out in the country, hon, and we lived on the south side of Highway 78, about 30 miles out of Birmingham. And our closest neighbor was a black family, and then we had, it was sort of mixed. It was about as many black families as were white families, and in the entire neighborhood, I'd say within a 4-mile radius, it was about 50-50.
Did you see much segregation?
Well, I didn't know anything about segregation really until we got a school bus, a new school bus in 1938. And the bus that we had was 5 years old in 1933, and an old model and not in very good shape. And I didn't think anything about getting the new bus until the first day I saw my black friends get on the bus, and it was our old bus. And then that was the first time that I ever realized what was going on. And then the next time that I realized that was when I got into high school, and the high school that I went to, Dora High School, had a gymnasium and a football field with lights, and the black school had neither one. And so our ball games were always on Friday night, and they played all their games on Saturday night. And that school bus plus that, when I got to the 9th grade, that was the first time I'd really felt for how they were treated. Never, of course, everybody knew that they couldn't eat in any of the restaurants that we ate. They had to go around to the back. So it was very, very segregated all over Alabama. In fact, the South was that way all over.
Yeah. Did you ever see any violence because of that?
Very little. I remember one time that my dad had some interaction with one of the black guys that later turned out to be really a bad guy and even went to prison. But he was, I think, drinking and saying things he shouldn't have been saying in front of the family, and Dad confronted him with it. But that's the only incident I ever saw.
What did you and your siblings do for fun?
Well, we played out in the yard. We played basketball, and had a goal in our backyard, and in our front yard. I mean, keep in mind that we didn't have any grass. The front yard was just dirt. So we had a basketball court there, and we also played marbles. You draw a circle about the size of this table here, 6 or 8 feet in diameter, and then you ante up. You play marbles back then for keeps, we called it. Is you put each one person put up maybe 3. If there's 5 playing, that'd be 15 marbles in the middle, and you shoot from on the outer edge, and you lag to the line across there to see who's first, and then the first person can start shooting, and then if you hit when you hit a marble and you knocked it outside the ring, it was yours. And if your marble, what was called a tall, if your tall was, you stayed in there with your marble you were using to shoot with, then as long as you hit those marbles out, you could take 5, 6, 7 marbles. If you were a good shot, you get 5 or 6 or 8 marbles when you got the first one. And so that was how you won. Who got the most marbles?
Yeah. Were you good at it?
Well, I thought I was the best in the county because I won every day until there was a guy moved in our neighborhood named Clyde Peoples. And Clyde Peoples. He came up to the house one day and had just moved there, and he saw us playing marbles. He came up and said, "Hey, can I play marbles with y'all?" We said, "Sure." He said, "Well, I didn't bring any marbles with me. Would somebody let me borrow 5?" And old noble me, I said, "Sure, I'll let you borrow 5." Well, I had about 8 or 10 cigar boxes under my bed full. I'd won all the marbles from everybody. Well, after about 2 weeks, I didn't have any more marbles under my bed. He was such a good marble player. I've never seen anybody like it. That, by the way, that ended my marble career. I didn't play marbles after that anymore.
Who were your friends?
Well, we had, they were within about a mile. You know, here in the city, you have your real close friends who live within a few blocks, maybe, and some all over town. But there, within about a mile radius, diameter, the radius of 1 mile radius, we had about the same age group as we would be, say, from 9 to 12 or 13. There were about 10, 11 black boys and 10 or 11 white boys that we were friends with, and all about the same size. And that's how we got up our baseball team, was the blacks played the white every Sunday afternoon. And to tell you how well we got along, we never had a fight, we never had a dispute or anything.
What age were you around that?
Huh?
What age were you when y'all had
From
baseball?
about 9 till 12.
Okay.
And then the war was getting close, and a lot of families, black families, were leaving Alabama and moving to Ohio and Michigan where they found jobs, because they didn't have any jobs out there for them anywhere. So my friend, that was my best friend, moved away to Ohio, and I have not seen him since then. But when he left there when we were 12 years old, and when I was 84, 72 years later, some of his family got killed in Argo at Hegler Hill with the tornado that came. That would have been 72, 12, 84. That would have been 4 years ago, approximately 4 years ago, when that tornado came. And I went out there that day, and while I was there, I met some of his family and found a cousin that knew where he was and had his phone number. So when I got back home with unlimited hours on the telephone, I talked an hour to my buddy that I hadn't seen in 72 years.
What was his name?
Junior Hagler, Hagler.
Okay.
Hagler.
And what race was he?
Black. He was my black friend. He and I were buddies, and his younger brother, Wes, Jimmy, we were best friends. So we played together all summer.
Okay. And besides baseball, what would y'all do?
Well, Dad showed us how to make a slingshot out of an inner tube and wood, and we'd go bird hunting with we never killed any birds, but we'd go bird hunting with that slingshot.
Anything else?
That we did?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'd go to the river and go swimming. We live within a half a mile of Warrior River out in Walker County. So just about every day during the summer when Jimmy and Wes and Junior and I would go bird hunting, we'd wind up at the river and go swimming. Now keep in mind we were like 9, 10, 11, and 12. And I mean, for those 3 years that we did that, 3 or 4 years. And so we went swimming and I never did tell our parents, and they never asked us. We just went anywhere we wanted to. And different world, Annie.
Okay, so when did you first go to school?
When I was 6 years old in the first grade at Argo.
What was your school like?
Well, it was a 2-room schoolhouse, but when I went to school there for first year or two, it had 8 grades in it. Then they consolidated from the 5th grade on, so we had 1-room schoolhouse. It had one teacher that taught 4 grades, and about average of about 6 to 8 students in each one of those grades. So the first grade had 1 row, second grade to second row, and third grade to third row, and fourth grade would be over here. Then when we graduated from that 4, we called a school bus and went to Summerton to go to school.
So that was in high school?
That was junior high school, we call it. So, and then, contrary to the way it is today, we went through the 9th grade at Summerton.
Okay.
And then we went only through the 10th, 11th, and 12th, so only had 3 years at Dora. But that's where I finished high school, was at Dora.
Okay. And so how far was that from your home?
Oh, it was 6 miles to Summerton, and it was 3 more miles to Dora.
Okay. Did you like going to school?
Oh yeah, I love school. Yeah, I sure did. In fact, I really wanted to go. I was the only boy in my class. There were only 36 in our class. I wanted to go to college, and I didn't have the money, and so I didn't want to graduate from high school. I wanted to keep going, but didn't have the money.
So did all your siblings go to school?
Well, actually, none of them finished high school in their normal time. My sister got married when she was a senior, so she dropped out of school, and then went back after she got married the next year and got her high school diploma. But none of the boys went to high school.
Did your parents go to high school?
Well, Dad had what mother said was about a blueback speller, which was equivalent about the 3rd grade, and she had equivalent of about an 8th grade education.
Okay. So when did you get your first job?
Well, when I was 8 years old, a guy, one of my friends, was moving out of town, and he had a Grit magazine subscription. Had about 10 subscribers, and he came by one day and asked me if I wanted his Grit magazine to sell. I asked my mother and dad, and they said sure. So I went around the neighborhood and sold those magazines, Grit magazine. Then about I don't know, right at 8 years old, at the end of that year, we were taking the Birmingham News and living out on Highway 78. They would throw our papers if we lived on the highway. They'd throw it up in your yard, and I don't remember how Dad paid for it, but so I asked him one day. I said, everybody that lives off the highway, they don't get a paper. He said no, and so I asked him if he would take me around if I could get 20 customers on Sunday morning, just take the Sunday paper before church and deliver the paper. Would he carry me around when we get the rest? He said yes. So he knew the guy that had the paper route for Birmingham News because he was subscribing to it. So he contacted the guy that day when he went to work and told him what I wanted to do and going to try to find 20 customers. And he said sure. He said I'll give him 20 Sunday papers for 2 weeks, and that way you can take him around it if that's what you propose, and if he can get them, well then I'll start charging him for them. So I asked Dad about it. If keep in mind that gasoline was only 13 cents a gallon then, and Dad was a mechanic and kept his car up, so it really didn't cost him much. But without any reluctance, he said sure. So I got my first 20 papers that day, and we started down the Highway 78, took a dirt road over to one place, came back, came out, went down the other way, and came back. And ultimately that day, I found 20 people and was able to find 20 that would buy them from me. So now I had 20 customers. And so Dad took me around that way until I was 12. Then I got a bicycle, and I had my own paper. I mean, I could deliver myself, so I delivered them on my bicycle for, actually for about 2 years, I guess.
Okay, so what other jobs did you do?
Well,
in high school.
In high school, primarily when I was 16. I had saved my money from a job that summer working for a guy driving a coal truck, and he paid me. I saved $100, and he had a truck in his barn that I saw, a 1936 Ford, and looked like brand new, really a good looking truck. So I asked him if he would sell it to me, and he said yes. I said, how much will you take for it? And he said, $150. I'll sell it to you for $150. So I got home that day and asked Dad if I could buy that truck pickup, and I told him I would need to borrow $50. He said, well, he already owed me $50 because for 5 years I'd been getting up, starting 2 fires in the morning, and to cook on, and he promised to pay me a nickel a piece for them. So I'd accumulated $50, so he gave me $50. He said he'd give me $50. So at the end of the summer, just before school started, I quit driving the truck there a week before school started, and I bought the truck for $150. And then,
wait, how much would $150 be considered now?
Gosh, at 19, I don't know. I would guess 10 times that, maybe.
Okay, wow.
10 times that. I'd say at least 8 to 10. I hadn't thought about that. You look it up.
Your estimates. That's what I needed. Thank you.
Yeah, and so I bought the truck, and by then I'd gotten real good experience driving. I'd driven a coal truck in a dangerous, very, very, very bad situation. So
when did you learn to drive?
I learned to drive when I was about 10 years old.
Okay.
My dad ran a garage, there at home, and he'd let me pull the cars in and out and stuff like that. And then he let me start driving and teach me how to drive. So I started driving when I was 10 years old. When I was 15, this is a part of supposed to keep secret. When I was 15, I went to the courthouse in Jasper, and I got Mr. Hamilton, who my dad worked for, to let me borrow his mother's car to go take my driver's test because Dad's car had a tail light out, so I couldn't use it. So he said, sure. So I borrowed his mother's car and drove up to the courthouse and went in, and they asked me how old I was. I told them I wanted to get a driver's license. They said, are you 16? I said, yes. They said, when were you born? I said, March of 1927, which was not true. So he said, okay. They never asked me for any identification, nothing. He said, do you have $1 to pay for the test? Yes, sir. So I gave my $1, signed up, took the test, got my driver's license, and it went on. And so I went to work that summer driving a truck. And that's how I got that truck driving job. Then I was going to be 16 the next year, and I put my application in to drive a school bus. And so I had a good driving record, a good school record, and so they let me have that route. So I drove a school bus for a couple of years.
Okay, so you got your car when you were 16, a truck?
Yep, got a truck when I was 16.
Were you considered a big deal at your school for having a truck at 16?
Annie, so help me, this is absolute fact. I never even thought about it. I mean, I really didn't. I just worked, saved my money, and I had used that truck for 3 different things. All after I'd get home from school, I'd either go haul somebody when cotton picking was in. I built a big wooden frame for the pickup, about 8 feet tall, and we'd fill it full of cotton and take the cotton gin, and I'd get $3 to go 11 miles and deliver it to the cotton gin. Then the cotton gin gave me $1, so I made $4 a day hauling cotton. Cotton season was over. Then I would go out, and there's a place called Piney Woods, and you could gather, 3 people could gather up a level bed, a truckload bed of pine knots for starter in about 3 hours. So I got my brother and a friend to help me. And we'd go every day when it wasn't after the cotton season. I'd go haul kindling and could sell all of it because everybody had a fireplace or stoves. Then, when the time to start having their fires, I would haul coal for $3 a load. They'd pay me $3 to go 6 miles and get a pickup truck load of coal. They would load it to a chute, and I would shovel it off and get $3. So I did that and drove the school bus. So I had my own money.
So were you saving all this money?
Yep.
What were you saving it for?
Well, I thought when I got out of school I'd be able to save enough to go to college, but a lot of things interrupted that and I couldn't do it.
So were you the only boy in your grade who had a car? A truck?
What?
Were you the only boy in your grade who had a truck?
I don't remember anybody else that had a vehicle.
Okay. So did you graduate high school in 4 years?
Yes, 1946.
Okay, so when did you first take interest in flying?
Oh, when I was about, I can't remember, maybe about 10 years old, 9 or 10 years old. Dad was working for this Mr. Hamilton out in Jasper, and he had his own airplane, and I saw pictures of it, and in his office and in the office room. And so I asked my dad if I could go flying, maybe Mr. Hamilton would take me flying, and he said he talked to him. So one day after school, he asked me, he said, I'm going to go for a short flight. You want to go back and ask your dad if you can go with me? I said, yes, sir. So that was my first time ever And after that, I'd hitchhike up to the airport and fly with people. Sometimes they're going to be flying local and they'd let me go with them. Sometimes they'd be going cross country and I'd go with them and hitchhike back.
Like cross country to where?
Oh, Birmingham, Hamilton, Huntsville, anywhere.
Okay, and you just hitchhiked. How old were you when you did this?
10, 11, 12 years old.
That's crazy. So, like, what did you like about flying? Was it just being up in the air?
I guess. I don't know, honey. It just struck me as something I had to do.
So when did you sign up for the Air Force?
I was sworn in September the 26th, 1946, 3 months after I got out of school.
Oh, wow. So why did you sign up?
Well, I didn't have enough money to go to college. And although I'd have gotten a distant cousin in Tuscaloosa to agree to give me a job in their tire shop after school and on Saturdays, but I didn't have enough money for tuition. I only had $150, $159.
So why did you want to go to college so bad?
I don't know. Because I didn't like living in the country. I'll tell you why the main thing. When I was 8 years old, I came to Birmingham with my dad, and he drove me through Crestline and Homewood, and I saw all those beautiful houses. And I asked Dad why we didn't move to Birmingham and buy one of those, living in that place we lived in with no heat, no electricity. And he just laughed at me because he was making $16 a week. And I told Dad, well, I'm going to go to Birmingham when I get grown, and I'm going to buy me one of those houses. And so my goal was to get to college and somehow or other. And so when I got, after spending 3 years in the Air Force, I had 4 years of college paid for, books, tuition, lab fee, everything except food and shelter. I had to pay for my rent for the room and buy my own food.
Okay, so what did you do in the Air Force?
I was a flight engineer. First I started out as a trainee for a flight engineer and auto mechanic and flight engineer, and it took me about 6 months to get that done. And then I started flying as flight engineer. Plus, when I was off, and the guys would go out and get their 2 or 3 or 4 hours in, then I'd go fly with them, and they'd get bored flying, so they let me fly. So I just flew every day.
Okay, so like, what did the flight engineer do?
He makes sure that all the gauges are performing and are consistent and constant, and that anything that comes up that would be abnormal, you make sure that whatever, if it's needed, where the pilot can't reach it, and the co-pilot, then the flight engineer would take care of it. And if they had a problem with the radio, they had to go back and get the radio operator and get that taken care of. And,
so did you have to be smart to do that job?
huh?
Did you have to be kind of smart to do that?
Well, what do you expect me to say? Of course I'm going to say you have to be brilliant. Well, no, you have to have, you really need a high IQ and mechanical thing.
Okay.
And that's different than an overall IQ.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so like, where did you fly what were you doing in the Air Force?
Well, a lot of things. We would haul what they call the garbage run to Korea and take food over there because it was imminent that the Korean War was going to begin, and they were shutting it off, close it off. So we had to raise the food in Japan and take it to Korea, South Korea, to keep our soldiers in food. And then we'd fly. We flew one trip, went a lot of places, just all over the South Pacific, paying off war debts. We paid the people on the islands like Tinian and Guam and Saipan, all those people, when we built airstrips and we cut down their palm trees, which was part of their income. We had to we agreed to pay them $100 a piece for all those. So I went around we went around. Our crew did haul the Attorney General one time. That was an example. It paid off all those war debts.
Oh, wow.
And then we would take different. Well, it'd be just different people coming in, going to different islands and different places on military duty from maybe from Washington, or some general would come in and we'll go from one island to the next because of some type of strategic meetings, and a lot of times we didn't know why we were going. We just were going.
Well, so you got to see a lot of the world doing that, didn't you?
31 months, and about the 26th of it, I stayed in the air every 2 or 3 days every week.
Oh, wow. So, did anyone else in your family, was anyone else able to leave the country?
Well, my older brother, while I was overseas, my older brother had just gotten home spent from 1938, got caught at Pearl Harbor during the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and stayed in the service until he came home at the end of the war in August, and he was on Okinawa when we bombed Hiroshima with an atomic bomb, and then they ended the war. He got to come home after the war was over.
Was it scary having your brother at Pearl Harbor?
Well, yeah, the whole family was, but he was on he worked his way from Hawaii all the way through the islands. When they took Guam, he was in Guam, moved on up a different island, and he was at Okinawa when they'd already taken Okinawa from the Japanese by then.
Okay, so that was your older brother. What was your place in the family?
He was the oldest, and I was my sister, and then me.
Okay, so you're third oldest. So, was it so scary having your brother fighting? Were you aware?
And Lou, I was so young that I guess I didn't really appreciate the significance of it until I got over there and saw what was happening.
Okay, so how much older than you was he?
10 years.
10 years. Okay, wow. And then how much younger was your youngest sibling?
I'd have to count it up, but I think he was like 8 years younger than me.
Okay. So, did you ever crash in the Air Force?
Yeah, we had 2 accidents while we were over there. One, we had a engine, propeller on an engine. When you're flying a multi-engine, especially smaller planes have now, but you have a propeller that has different pitch to it. When you're taking off, you got the high speed, high turning of it with a little bit of bite to get you going. But when you get up and level off, you have a control that changes the angle of the blades. That also part of the practice is feathering the engine, which puts it in a neutral position. This particular time, we were test flying it at 3,600 feet and put it in a feather position on the gauge, but it went past feathering and it stripped a pin off, and the engine was still coughing and it caused the plane to turn upside on the side, and we went almost straight down for 3,600 feet, but just before we got to the water, it straightened out.